We've reached the end of our first book and it's time for a summary. I want to talk about the whole argument through the theme of goodness, which was the main concentration of our investigation of part 6. The question is, what sort of person is good and what is the true charity? Now, Descartes in part 6 is quite decisive. He knows what he likes and he knows what he rejects. The good person, he says, is the scientist who knows how to be helpful to other people, therefore fulfills charity, which simply means helping others. This is opposed to the idea of the saint as the good person. The characteristic of the saint is that the saint dies to him or herself and lives for others. The patriotic hero is similar. And if you want to understand the importance of this idea and you want to recognize that it's still around and still makes a difference to us, you can just think of the importance of the word martyr in the way people discuss these sorts of questions. Now, this summary is a good place to stop and consider what's the point? Why did we read this book? Well, it's Descartes' account of how he chose his path through life. Now, AUIS students take this course when they're just finishing their general studies and deciding on their major, starting their major, and of course that major will decide, to a large extent, your course through life. So it's an example, a high example, particularly since Descartes was quite deliberate and decisive about his choice. He thought about it clearly and rigorously and held to it firmly. Now, I can't help you, and education in general can't help you make the major decisions in your life, but we can give you high examples of what other people have done in your situation. And that's the best way to reflect on your own choices. What we've done here is to look at a small part of the map of the choices of life. In a way, we've dropped a pin in that map so that you can see where you are in relation to it. And that's at least a start to understanding what your total choice is. Now, this book is a record of how Descartes chose his vocation, how he recognized it, and his argument for thinking it was his best way of life. Now, what is a vocation? Well, in a way, it's just a word for the work you do in life, but it's better than a job, which is a thing that you do because you have to get the money you need. It's better even than a career. A career is an advance over a job. It's something challenging and fulfilling and sustaining. But not every career is a vocation. You have a vocation if you can say to yourself, this thing or this other thing is what I was born to do. Or you have a vocation if you have a top purpose in your life that you're working on. If you get to the end of your life and you ask yourself, what did I do? Or other people ask about you, what did he or she do? Then you have a vocation if the thing you worked on is the number one answer to that question. Now, not everyone has a vocation, and perhaps we should say that it's too high a goal. Maybe it's an empty dream, too much to ask, although clearly Descartes thought he found it for himself, so that shows it's possible, at least for some. Now, what interests me about reading this book with all of you is that you are making this choice, and most of you are in some way following along and agreeing with Descartes' choice. The end of part 6 has Descartes imagining the world that he wants, a great collaborative community of science and technologists that will collaborate together to solve practical problems. And most of you are studying in order to take a place in that real community that has come into being since Descartes' day. And this is also interesting. Some of you are deliberately deciding not to make that choice. But the interest for me comes that I think you won't all have Descartes' reason. You're doing what he urged you to do, or deliberately choosing against it, but you're doing what he urged you to do without agreeing with his argument and following along with his reason. And so I'm curious about how people work out that decision. AUIS is really set up to save you from having a job and to help you into a career. But formally, we can't help you into a vocation. That's not a thing that can go on a transcript. But I assume that you are thinking seriously about it since you are making the decision. And I wonder, do some of you accept the strong and decisive reasoning that Descartes shows us in this book, which includes a strong rejection of traditional alternative? He wants to embrace his new idea of technological goodness and technological charity against the traditional ideas. And would you prefer a compromise, or do you have some other reason for choosing the path through life that you're now working on? That's what I'd be interested to hear about, and that I think is the real result of our studying this book.